And welcome back to Live Now from Fox. The search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 will resume on December 30th, more than a decade after the airplane's mysterious disappearance over the Indian Ocean. The Malaysian government said that Texas-based marine robotics company Ocean Infinity is set to begin a 55-day targeted deep-sea search for the missing aircraft in the southern Indian Ocean by the end of this month. On March 8, 2014, the flight took off from Kuala Lumpur heading towards Beijing when it disappeared around 90 seconds after leaving Malaysian airspace, vanishing along with all 239 passengers in what has become one of aviation's greatest unsolved mysteries. Satellite data revealed the plane deviated from its flight path and went south towards the far southern Indian Ocean, where it's believed to have crashed. To discuss this further is Ella Atkins, head of aerospace engineering at Virginia Tech. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Live Now from Fox to discuss all of this. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I just read a little bit of what we saw happen there back in 2014 when the flight did disappear. But could you just share for our viewers a little bit more context as to what exactly happened in terms of a timeline?
Sure. The Boeing 777 took off normally and appeared to climb out normally over the South China Sea along its intended route of flight. About 38 minutes after takeoff, the transponder was turned off. The flight crew didn't give any indication of a problem. Their last message was basically to say goodnight to air traffic control as they headed out over the ocean, which is a completely normal thing to do. And then it basically appears that the pilot or someone in the aircraft turned off the transponder, and so a secondary surveillance radar was lost, which means that the transponder that the crew can control was no longer active. Because the plane turned back toward the land of Malaysia, the radar that was on that that was around that country was able to track the plane during its turnaround and flight to the South Indian Ocean. But then once the plane got far enough away from land that there was no more radar to track it, we don't know exactly where it went. After the accident, which I presume was an accident, even though we didn't actually track the plane descending into a crash, there has been very little found, but there was pieces of a horizontal stabilizer that did wash up on East Africa, and investigators identified that, as you're showing in your video right now, as likely pieces from Malaysia Airlines 370.
All right, so before we dive into what we can expect as this does resume here, can we talk a little bit about some of those theories as to what happened? You touched on it just a little bit, but what are some of those key theories here, and how is that going to impact this investigation going forward?
Yeah, so the investigators did a methodical check of everyone that was on the aircraft, and the most suspicious person was the captain. And they looked at various flight simulations that he had been doing. There's no proof that it was the captain. We haven't recovered anything that would tell us that specifically from the accident, but there were in his flight simulations things that appeared to potentially be rehearsals of this type of action. And there was some evidence that he might not have been completely mentally stable. One of the things that this investigation turned up and really brought to light is that Malaysia Airlines had not purchased an optional satellite tracking system that allows a plane flying a transoceanic flight to be continuously pinging to this satellite system. And so in this particular case, the lack of that system meant that we could indeed, even though we're in the 21st century, lose an airplane over the ocean. So there were a lot of kind of discussions after this accident where we are moving toward two different changes. One is where we do have continuous satellite tracking of aircraft, even on transoceanic flights, which is an improvement. Certainly, we hope to not lose a commercial aircraft again in terms of not knowing where it is. And then the second one is in the data recorders. This came up in the Air France accident that happened earlier, having the ability to record more data over a longer time period, and also having a power system that if you have a transponder that goes along with these data recorders that submerges in the ocean, and it takes time to find it, that it lasts more than a few days.
Now, when we talk about moving forward with this investigation, because as we've been saying here, this is one of the greatest aviation mysteries still not resolved. This is resuming after a decade. When it comes to technology and how that has increased, I mean, what's going to be different here in terms of this search compared to a decade ago when we had lesser technology available to us?
Well, I think we have better sensors, and we also have better batteries and autonomy. So instead of having very limited ability to sweep a particular path at the bottom of the ocean, we're going to have the ability to cover the floor of the ocean a little more broadly. And there has been a lot of preparation. When an airplane crashes and you don't expect it, even though people are ready to do this kind of search, they're not organized. They haven't been methodically planning, in this case, over a decade for that type of activity. So I think this company has really thought long and hard about what they're deploying, how long it's going to be there. Obviously, they're able to get funding to do it. It's pretty expensive to do this. And so I have some hopes that they're going to be successful this time, although it's still a really hard thing to do, to find objects at the bottom of the ocean, and they're going to be potentially searching some of the same areas that were already searched.
And that was my next question to you, is what are those challenges, particularly in the Indian Ocean, but also just the ocean in general, right? I mean, this is a large area that they're looking for this airplane, and it still has not been found. So what are those key challenges, and how are they preparing to tackle those?
Right. So if you think about an airplane versus, say, a ship like the Titanic, when you have a shipwreck, in general, there are only one or a couple of pieces of the ship, because it doesn't smack the ocean and fly into so many pieces because of that impact. With this airplane, it's very unlikely, in fact, if that horizontal stabilizer was from this airplane, we know that it really broke into many pieces when it hit the ocean, most likely. And so they're not going to be able to scan and say, oh, look, there are the wings and the tail on an assembled airplane. They're going to have to find pieces that may very well look like trash from so many ships or other operations and say, oh, I think that's part of an airplane, recover it, and then try to figure out if it is. If it broke up on impact, as we know, there's some pieces that ended up in Africa. It's not clear that there's a very small debris field on the bottom of the ocean. They may find one piece and then say, well, I wonder where the others are. And then taking ocean models, they'll try to piece it together, but it's very hard to do that. The other thing is the ocean is a very unforgiving environment. If you have a very deep depth of water where this debris field might be found, then people can't go there unless they're surrounded by the protection of a deep submergence type vehicle, so that they can not have too much pressure applied to the body. Robots can certainly go to deep depths, but there are limitations in both communications and power that mean that they can't just hang out there for weeks of time.
Right, a lot of challenges there, but hopefully there is some closure for these families. I mean, this has been over a decade, and a lot of them are just want that closure, which is completely understandable. Over 200 people were on that flight. Ella Atkins, is there anything else that you'd like to add to this before I let you go here?
Sure. I think this is one of those accidents that doesn't appear to be the airplane doing something wrong, meaning no system appeared to have initially failed. It appears to have been an intentional turnaround act. There's no reason that the software in a Boeing 777 would turn off the transponder and turn back towards land. So I just want to say that I think that we're all busy looking at accidents that are caused by mechanical problems. And one of the things that we're going to have to deal with as we move forward is having some of the analogous safety systems in commercial airlines that we have increasingly in cars, that are called refuse to crash autonomy capabilities. This doesn't mean we have scary AI. It just means that if a human, a hijacker, a pilot, whatever, has bad intent for that aircraft, we have the technology now to say, hey, there's never a reason to fly out into the ocean past the range of the aircraft to get back to land. So the plane shouldn't do that.
All right. Well, we appreciate your insight here this morning. I'm sure we'll have you back on as we continue to follow this story once this does pick back up here at the end of the month. We appreciate you coming on this morning.
Thank you.